hear me okay?
Gotcha.
Okay. Hey, Jason, just, kind of take us through the third round or the second round there with some pretty good running backs on the board. You go ahead and take Winfield.
Well, I guess I would say that we obviously had Antoine Winfield graded pretty high. It's also a position that we wanted to address in the draft. We felt that as the draft rolled along that we'd be able to hopefully get a running back that we liked, that we had graded, at a high value. And that's the way we did it. We felt the safeties were coming off pretty quick. And if we left Antoine sitting there on the board, he wouldn't be there. So we feel very good about the decision we made here, and we're excited to have Antoine here.
All right, next up we have Greg Auman.
Hey, Jason. The coaches at Minnesota, in talking about Winfield, they really stress versatility, how many different ways he can be used. I know that safety is a position that Todd Bowles likes to use creatively. How much does that give him somebody he can do a lot of things with?
Well, it's one of the things that we really loved about Antoine. It's I hate doing comparisons to players in the NFL right now because he hasn't set foot on the field in the NFL. But some of the reasons that we like Budda Baker and Tyrann Mathieu, and I'm not saying that I'm not putting him in that category yet, but we feel that he has the ability to play free and strong. We play interchangeable in our scheme. He's dropped down to nickel and done a really nice job there too. So you got a safety that can do all those different things. It really raises his value, and he's a very smart guy, very intense guy, loves football, and we're just excited to get him here and get rolling.
All right, next up we have Jenna Lane.
Hi, Jason. As far as Vaughn goes, how do you envision him fitting into your offense there? Is the idea there to use him as a pass catcher or as a first and second down?
Well, the idea is to get him here and see what he does best. We know that he's got good speed. We know that he can catch the ball. We know that he's good in space. He's been very productive there. He's also a very intense person, just like Antoine in terms of his demeanor, in terms of his football character and passion. One of the things that we really, really loved about him, he's very smart. I think he's capable of playing on all three downs. So you can't have too many good backs. You can't just rely on one good back. And if you have a guy that can do multiple things, it makes it even more, him more valuable to your team. So we'll see how it goes. We have to get him here, and we'll get him in the mix, and we'll see how it all shakes out. But we're excited to have him as well.
All right, next up we have Ed Encina.
Hi, Jason. Just following up on that, because you guys don't have a pick in the fourth round, how important was it to draft a running back, especially with the kind of skill set that Vaughn has?
Well, yeah, we felt like it was very important. By no stretch of the imagination am I going to say that we reached at all, because he was sitting right there, right where we were picking, and it just matched up with what we felt like we needed, which was another running back to get in the mix with Rojo. So Rojo and Dari and TJ, we feel like we've got a pretty good group right now.
Okay, next up we have Luke Easterling.
Hey, Jason, 3 picks, 3 of your biggest needs. They're filled and addressed now. You've added, a couple of 7th round picks here. Do you feel like the board has fallen in a way where you could get tempted, now that you don't have a 4th round pick, to use some of those later picks and maybe move up for a guy? Is there a need that you feel like is big enough?
We'll have to see how it goes. This was a great draft in terms of having players that we liked that fit our needs. So that doesn't always happen that way. Started in the 1st round with, pretty good group of offensive tackles, a very good group. And then at safety, and then at running back, this is a deep running. There's still some really good runners out there. It's a deep group of receivers. There's still some offensive linemen that we like. There's still some defensive linemen we like, but we felt like the positions that we wanted to address this year, this draft really matched up with that. So we were fortunate in that respect.
Okay, next up we have Steve Carney.
Hi, Jason. I'm curious with Vaughn because he had kind of a drop off between 2018 and 2019, especially yards per carry going from almost 8 per carry down to under 6. Were you surprised to see him there at 76, knowing what kind of a back he was in a very good college conference like the SEC?
Yeah, I was a little surprised. You know, coming off of his junior year, we had even higher grades on him than we did this year. You know, I think they lost a few players. It wasn't as productive. It's one of those years that every program goes through a little bit of a retool. So, you know, there was a lot of backs this year that played behind some, you know, because of just graduating seniors and having to play young guys. Their offensive lines weren't quite what they were at one point. So, there's no disrespect to this program at all. It's just happens everywhere. So you have to kind of do your evaluation based off, you know, the entire career of the player, the last 2 years especially. So we felt like, you know, what we're getting is what we've seen in 2018 and 2019.
And next up is Mark Cook, followed by Greg Auman.
Hey, Jason. With Winfield, you know, was his leadership ability, is that something that attracted you guys to him? And can a guy at his age step in to that group and really be a leader on the field and in the meeting rooms and things like that with his maturity?
Well, yeah, most definitely. But he's also a really, you know, very bright guy and knows that he's not going to step in right away and do that, but he's going to lead through his actions. But, you know, he is, you know, I hate the alpha male, you know, of his team. And so is Ke'Shawn. So, but, you know, they know that they have to come in and earn their stripes and earn the respect of their teammates. But once their actions on the field start showing up, it's going to be pretty easy for everybody to realize that this guy is a leader. So we felt, you know, today, you know, in terms of their ability, talked about that. We like that, but their leadership and just their presence in the locker room were a couple of things that we loved about these guys.
All right, next up we have Greg Auman, followed by Luke Easterling.
Hey, Jason, the way that the picks fell today, you obviously could have taken a more prominent back in the second round and felt good about going safety there and waiting in the third round. To do that, how much of that is an endorsement of how much you guys like Ronald Jones and see him as a primary back you can build around this fall?
Well, yeah, no, we love Ronald. We think Ronald's going to take another step this year. In terms of, you know, what you're saying, a more prominent back, I guess that would be the way that you see, you know, these guys ranked in the media and things like that. You know, we try to evaluate our players based on our coaches, our scouts, and how we like them. Sometimes, you know, a guy can be, and I'm not picking on any player in particular, but sometimes everybody thinks that a player that's talked about the most is a better player. So, you know, right now we'll see how it goes, but we're happy with the guys that we got. Like I said before, the run on the safeties happened pretty quick. You know, before and after we took Antoine, so we felt like we made a good decision there, and we're excited about it.
Okay, next up we have Luke Easterling.
Jason, when we spoke to you a couple weeks ago, you had mentioned, you know, the willingness to take a developmental quarterback prospect if the right guy came along. How kind of challenging is it to look down the road and know that, you know, you've got Tom Brady, you've got a veteran in Blaine Gabbert coming back who could start if necessary, if there was an injury or something? How challenging is it from a roster construction standpoint to know that spending a draft pick on a guy means a roster spot for a guy, and how tough is that to kind of piece that puzzle together?
Well, yeah, you're if there's a guy that you really like and you feel has a good chance to develop, you're going to want to try to take him. But, you know, we feel like we're going to get some years out of Tom. We like Blaine and we like Ryan Griffin too. So, you know, it's like I've said before, it's got to be the right guy. And, you know, we also had some other parts of our roster that we needed to address. So, you know, we'll address that when we feel like we need to. But right now, at this point, we don't, you know, we haven't so far at this point, but, you know, we still have a whole day of drafting left to go.
Okay, next up we have Steve Isbitz from Joe Bucks fan.
Hey, Jason, how did the unique situation surrounding this year's draft and the coronavirus and all that, how did that factor in, if at all, with drafting guys like Vaughn and Winfield, who are bigger personalities? Maybe they show up better on the computer or something like that. I don't know. How did that maybe factor in?
Well, no, I think we went about it the same way, trying to get a gauge of every player's personality, but also their intelligence and, just how they come across when we interview them. That's just a small part of it. I think we put a little bit more focus on the player on the field evaluation, and our scouts do an incredible job all year gathering information on the other things, the other traits of the player that we look for. So, I have said before that we may have put a little bit more emphasis on making sure that we are getting guys that can get up to speed quicker, that can, adjust and adapt quicker in the NFL environment. But we weren't going to overlook players that have, upside and developmental upside for the future either.
All right, we got time for a couple more. Next up is Greg Allman.
Hey, Jason, to take Winfield in the second to invest another pick in safety, when we had talked to Bruce in Indy, he had mentioned that Justin Evans, his timetable for any kind of return had kind of already been backed up to June. As much as you've invested in safety the last few years, do you still expect to have Justin Evans on this team when you go to camp this fall?
Right now we do. And we think it's going to be, if he gets healthy at that point, we're going to have a hell of a competition there. So because Justin's a extremely talented guy, we're not writing Justin off whatsoever.
All right, we're going to do Steve Carney and then finish with Rick Stroud.
Jason, when you look at a guy like Winfield, when you're going through the tape, the name, he's a legacy guy. How much do you how easy is it to put that name and the name recognition aside and just look at the talent of a guy like Winfield and go, you know what, he may have the NFL pedigree because of his old man, but you can see what sort of a defensive back he is in his own right.
I think that's pretty easy. Over the years, we've all come across guys as we get older in age here that we evaluate players and then we evaluate their sons at some point too. So, and sometimes they're players, sometimes they're not as talented. It's pretty easy. Antoine stood out on the field, whether or not his name was Winfield or Smith. So that was pretty easy.
All right, and the last one from Rick Stroud.
I will say it is good to have those bloodlines and good to know when a player has a father like Antoine did or does that has the experience. It is an asset in his favor that he knows what the NFL is all about.
All right, Rick, you're up.
Jason, will you use Antoine in the return game at all? And do you see him on defense as a guy that can move all over the field? I mean, could he play nickel? Could he do these different things?
Absolutely. Yes to both. I think he's, we like what, some of the players that we have that have, been contributing in the return game, but he's going to be added to the mix there. But like I said before, in terms of his ability as a safety, he is an interchangeable guy that can play both. He can play the high, he can play the post, he can play free, strong, and he can play the nickel. And he's been making plays, 7 interceptions at playing at all those positions. He's extremely hard. He's fast. He's got great burst and acceleration, and he's a really good foot athlete and super instinctive. So those are all things for us to be excited about and to see when he gets here and we start playing again.
All right, that's all for tonight. Appreciate it, Jason.
Thanks, guys.